are live. I'll hit it up on the tweeter box here.
Oh, shit. What the hell did I just do?
How do you... There's the Twitter. There it is.
What button did I just hit?
What day is this?
I don't... It just popped open the settings for Google, like, automatically. I didn't hit any of the... I didn't do it, I swear.
Awesome. And tweet. And there it is. There it is. Do you want to remember your password? No. 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 Negative. No.
Oh, here's my YouTube.
Ooh.
No.
Move that over to the center so it actually looks somewhat professional.
Matt DiBenedetto fan. What is up, my brother?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
All right, this is like probably one of our few.
Look what I have. I have on the line Nate Ryan with a picture of Matt Weaver. Oh, Matt.
Whoops.
Weaver AW, I think he likes to.
Yeah, that's the old tweeter.
Yep. There we go. That would have been
Nate
funny.
Ryan. Oh, so you're still working on the producer.
Oh, I didn't mean to work on the producer. I just happened to notice.
This is the pre-show, y'all. We have not mashed the official record button yet. Well, our guest is calling in at 9:30. We're going to start the show before that, but we figured we've been telling you all week that we're going to be live on YouTube at 9. No sense in not already going live at 9:04, I think, is when we made it online.
Yeah.
Mr. Rose, welcome to the party. JoJo.
Sweet. Let's see if this comes back sounding good. Sweet. Sweet. It did. I was just recording just to look at sound check.
A lot of this y'all don't usually get to see because we're doing all this like rush because I'll show up at like 8:40 or 8 and we have to be live in 12 minutes and there's like a guest waiting in the queue and all that fun mess.
Right.
But today we're doing something kind of out of the... You guys should have Cole Witt on. We would love to have Cole Witt on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be very cool. He's a cool dude. We would certainly want to do that.
You know, I noticed something in last week's podcast that was funny. Was it? I think I handed you a drink to try, and then you handed it back to me, and it was just funny looking at it on the video. How like my hand kind of goes across leaves, and suddenly there's a drink in your hand coming across. I don't know why that's funny. We sit across from each other. If you can't tell.
Fourth wall.
Yeah,
gets broken repeatedly.
Right there.
Because we're right here.
Yeah.
That's funny as hell.
That was a fun one. Oh, Matt Weaver again. Nice. Yeah. Well,
heck yeah.
We got to give him a call here in about 23 minutes, but we'll have started the show by then. We just wanted to kind of, I don't know, mess around.
I found out at like 8:01 he was that we had a little bit of a logistics issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of changed courses a little bit, but we're still going to do what we do.
You know what's funny with my gray hair too?
Out of this beer.
When I turn to the side, you can't see this hair. It looks like I'm bald-headed on the...
It does kind of look like you're bald-headed.
Yeah.
You cut a lot of it off.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's...
standard cut.
Yep, standard rusty cut.
I couldn't decide whether to go to get my hair cut, to go shaggy beard for this wedding.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I'm waiting to the last minute to decide. I'm going to take the trimmer and a razor and see if anybody can give me some advice on that.
I was laughing because I was with 3 women today having lunch. It was me and 3 ladies, and they were talking about getting their hair did, right? And
go and get your hair did.
Go and get your hair did. And
you want one of these?
Sure.
I got 4.
There's that magic pass back and forth the beer. So here's the thing. Women pay a ton of money and drive like an hour sometimes.
Women be paying money for some hair did.
Yeah, they do. And they were talking about like how the drama with their hairdressers and stuff and what's going on in their lives. And I said, you know what's funny? There's a Hispanic dude. He's across the street from our neighborhood. Like that's how I found him. I was like, where's a haircutting place? There's one. He gives me a full haircut and a straight razor shave and trims my beard. and it's for $12.
Damn it, I'm coming down here for it.
I'll tell you what, man. And he hardly speaks any English, and I'm pretty sure we've spoken no more than 10 sentences to each other in our life. And I've been going there 8-9 years, something. I walk in, same haircut, sir? Yep. Okay. And that's it. That's the conversation. There is no family drama. There is no nothing. No, that's isn't that like dude stuff? Like I'd invite him to my wedding if I was getting married now. You know, I'm already married, but I'd invite him. Hell yeah, come on, have fun.
So I had the same and I didn't realize this. My dad's convinced of this, but the same guy that I had cut my hair for over 20 years was also the first person that ever gave me a haircut.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, that conversation goes a little bit like used to go. I'd walk in, short or real short.
Yeah.
That was the conversation.
Yeah.
And then he'd tell me some dirty jokes, and he'd ask me about the girls. And
okay. Okay.
But it wasn't a whole. I mean, it was a 18-minute haircut on a slow day.
Right.
Once I hit the chair, it was like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's done.
I'm going to a wedding, Bob. Don't cut it as short this week. All right.
Yeah. But, that's one thing that I think if I could take some magic pill or something that, okay, my hair is this exactly for the rest of my life, I think I'd do it. You know what I mean? Like, this right here, this haircut right here, rest of my life, I'll take
just hold serve.
Just hold right there. If I could, if there was the pill for that, I would take it because for 35 years, this is how I've cut my hair every time. It's maybe a little shorter, maybe a little longer, whatever. But averaging out, that's the one.
Yep, I hear you.
So anyway,
I know what you mean.
Anyway,
I have a hard time convincing barbers today to do what I want, which is what I tell them is, I said I want about a 2 on the side. And then I want you to blend it all up in, and if the part disappears, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it will. They'll cut it. If you cut it the length I want it, you cut it, you won't be able to part it anymore because the hair won't be long enough.
Yes, I know that exactly.
And I just can't. I have a hard time convincing. I almost always have to ask, go ahead and get some more. Go ahead and get a little. Don't be. I said, I'll try to tell them, look, you're not. I'm not going to walk out here disappointed because you took too much hair away. All right, because shit grows back really fast.
Yeah. As it turns out. I always tell them a number 2 on the sides, number 4 on the top, just blend it together, straighten out the sideburns, straighten out the back. That's it. And that'll do it. And this guy, he doesn't like doing the 4 on top. He gets in there with the scissors and stuff and does all that.
They all want to mess with the scissors because that's like what proves you went to barber school.
Okay, that must be it then. And,
yeah,
it all turns out good. The only thing he does, so once I'm done, probably same for you since you do. They get out the buzzer for some part of it. You got little pieces of hair everywhere, all over, right? Like if you run your hand through it, you'll come back. With hand to hair. So I always come back and take a shower. But he always does my hair with the goop beforehand, and it's always hilarious because he takes my bangs and makes sure they stand straight up like I've been
like the faux hawk or whatever.
Or no, more like I've been in like my head's out the window and
You mean you just did your hair like Cameron Diaz and something about Mary?
Yeah, just straight up doing that. High and tight, 3 on top, skin on the sides. I'm digging it, man. Yeah, that's a dude cut. You know what? You ought to be able to walk in and just say the number 1, like
order it off the menu.
If you go to McDonald's, you order the number 1. You know what you're getting. You're gonna get you a Big Mac, and you're gonna get you a fry. If you walk in a barbershop, you ought to be able to say number 1, and they know that's tight on the sides, a little less tight on top, and clean the rest up.
And fade.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. One of these days, I'm growing my hair out like Blaney.
Dude, I tried. Do you remember when I tried?
I'm going to have to get less fat, though, because that's a hot hair, dude.
Yeah. Over the spring, I tried that. And my hair went, like right now, it's like down to here. It got down to about here on my bangs area, and the rest was all poofed. And it was like, I can't do this. I can't stand it. Like, it got to the point where, like, a hat
didn't fit right.
Well, you wear the hat because, my hair's messed up. I'm going to just wear a hat, right?
Yeah.
Well, your hair was messed up outside the hat. It's like, well, this defeats the purpose. It's stupid.
Yeah, but isn't that the point of
just
whatever they
rag.
got going on? Mullet.
Rag
I saw
mullet
Eric
haircut.
Jones tweeted he'd got his hair cut at
Yeah,
Sport
yeah, I
Clips
saw
or
that.
whatever.
I saw that.
Sponsor plug.
Yeah, well, good for him. That was.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do.
The A+ plug there.
At some point, if you have a haircuttery sponsor, you got to get your hair cut there and take a picture. Somebody probably calibrated him.
Right.
You do realize that in quarter 3, you have to take at least one photo getting a haircut.
JoJo not understanding this 2 and 3 dues. Wish it was that easy for women. That's very funny. That's a great point.
Some women do get the same haircut forever, though.
Well, they get the same haircut forever, but every dude knows what a number 2 blend to a number 4 means when you're talking about haircuts.
Yeah,
and it's funny if that's one of those things that, hey, what's something that guys will get? I mean, there's 1,000 things women will get. I don't want to get into that, but things that guys will get that women won't. Yeah, I'll take a number 2 on the sides, 4 on top. You know exactly what you're getting.
Do you have a widow's peak? I don't think I've ever noticed.
Well, you tell me.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit as I'm getting older.
It's not as pointy right there.
No.
So if you go to a black barber shop, Andrew found this out. Guy was working. He was doing some work, and I didn't really know what he was doing until he had finished. You know how black guys will get their shit touched up like every day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, like their
Looks
beard
good, too.
and the side of their it does. And dude, he got rid of my widow's peak.
Oh, no kidding.
And I was like, who is this fool in the mirror? Because I've had that moment. People try to give me hell about losing my hair like this. This is going back. It's not. I have a picture when I was 18 years old at like senior pictures. Same hairline.
Same hairline.
It's not changed.
Yeah.
It's gotten grayer right in here.
I was going to say, I got pictures of me at 18 years old with gray hairs.
I couldn't grow a beard when I was 18, but now mine's gray and chin hair.
Yeah. If you wonder why Rusty wears a goatee, this section right here does not grow for me. And
which is
I have
funny
to
because
do
that's
like
the first place I did grow hair.
That's funny.
Right there.
I have to do the like sideburn comb over.
Oh yeah.
Oh man! All right, we're having fun.
All right, we gave him 10 minutes of this nonsense.
Hope y'all enjoy that stuff. How about a NASCAR racing podcast to go with it?
Yep.
You ready, Sherwin?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me do a quick sound check here. That looks good. I need to come down just a hair. Sherwin?
Yeah. Check. This is the volume I need to try to maintain.
Yep, that looks good right there. Okay, so
that does happen, by the way. I'll start to get quiet while you stay noisy.
Well, I just gotta. I think about it as I've got to shout at you, Sherwin.
I think that's awesome. What I've spent my whole life trying to figure out why everybody on the other side of the room can hear me. So I like consciously aware of that projection, that innate projection skill.
Yeah. Oh boy. Oh, I got a belch.
That'll happen.
Okay. All right, didn't want to do that as I'm like, welcome y'all.
Yeah, you could be like the well-read guys and have Mr. Butt make appearances.
Mr. Butt. I love it. You ready to roll?
Sure.
Let's do this. Let me see. I'm like, wait, am I forgetting something? No, I just got to press record and press play. So here goes nothing. 1, 2, 3, recording. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is a Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 114. Today is Tuesday, September 26, 2017. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm joining the PTM Podcast Studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Well, after taking like a whole month off, we come right back to you like 4 business days later. 3 business.
3 business days for sure. Woo! Yeah. Ready?
We had to get this done because I'm skedaddling on out to Denver, Colorado tomorrow.
So, y'all, as always, this podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM. Join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month. Get that free koozie. Best part is every cent in 2017, we're donating to sponsoring drivers. Join the PTM posse and be a part of the sport you love. Me and Sherwin were just talking pre-show about what we're going to do with all that money and where it's going to go and everything. We're cooking up some cool ideas that I think will be great.
Some things marinate.
Yes, sir. This week's show, it's brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. And this is I can't do it in one breath no more. So thank you, PTM Posse, and especially thank you to Catherine Kingston, Ashley Stang, Harry Balzania, Mark Wiley, Craig Smolders, Lori Sutton, Mick Rose, Robert Keplinger, Tony Saul, Kobe McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefter, Marion Levesque, Patrick Cleary, Aaron Bearden, Jeff Brown, and Chad Sterling. So off to the races. Let's do this.
Hell yeah.
No, I couldn't do that in one breath. I had to take a breath between. I'm all excited and I'm all yelling and screaming and all that stuff. But
I think you get distracted by Harry Balzania.
You're right. I definitely take
very unique name.
I take about 3 people's worth of breaths when I have to Harry Balzania.
Yeah, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative.
Oh, that's terrible.
Wait, what happened?
Awful. Yeah, I don't know. Who's talking?
Did you park it in the ditch in the first 3 minutes?
It's possible.
Yes, we did. That's what we do.
It's possible. So, y'all, we've got a guest coming on in a few minutes tonight. About 10 minutes from now, we're going to give a call to our multi-time guest and Associate Motorsports Editor for Autoweek USA, Mr. Matt Weaver. He'll be on.
Yeah, he's we got to give him like an honorary PETM PhD or something at this point.
I like that. PETM PhD. What kind of ragtag school do you go to get a PETM PhD?
I mean, PETM University.
And the PETM University is not accredited by any organization whatsoever. Oh, man, yeah. Looking forward to that. Speaking of looking forward to, what are we drinking on tonight, Sherwin?
All right, so I've been playing this game where I buy beer from the market that we are entering from a NASCAR perspective.
By the way, y'all, this has been so cool, and I don't know if y'all been following along. We've been doing the car number thing for so long, and I kind of spearhead that, and I don't know if it was natural or if Sherwin was just looking for a thing, but this whole buy a beer from the state that we're fixing to go racing at, I think this is cool as Christmas. So this is really neat.
It certainly fits the things that we like to do.
Yeah. Which is drink and talk about NASCAR.
And we have fantastic distribution in Atlanta, so typically we are going to be able to find a beer from the state we're racing in.
Yeah.
So today what we've got this is hands down one of my favorites. And we've talked about it with plenty of friends over here on the tweeter. Bo Hendel, Bodacious is all up in some beer, and some other folks. But this is the Dogfish Head 90-minute India Pale Ale.
The 90.
Dogfish is a Delaware brewing company, which is awesome. Trying to see if there's the exact city is labeled, but it doesn't appear to be. Milton, Delaware.
Well, that's cool. They used to have a show on TV. Did you ever watch that?
I did not, but I definitely saw. Yes.
Okay.
Wait, when they were getting started, they were expanding.
Yeah, they were expanding.
I watched that.
They do some really cool stuff, not just the stuff that gets distributed all the way to Atlanta and stuff, but they do some really cool brews that's just because they wanted to. They have a series of, they call it Ancient Brews, where they're trying to recreate what people were drinking in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia and all this stuff. Then they were doing they got a hold of George Washington's personal recipe and brewed that.
Why not?
Really cool.
So I professed on many an occasion when talking about what our top 5 or top 3 or even top 1 beers are. Sponsor and longtime listener Eric Kepner's favorite all-time beer is the Dogfish Head Midas Touch, which is a strong ale.
And that's one of the Ancient series.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the, King Midas, that stuff.
Right.
So.
Gold.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And this one, so here in Atlanta, we've got, I'm sitting here stalling until we call Matt Weaver, by the way. So,
clearly,
feel free to fast forward.
Bit.
But, I brewed homebrew. Sherwin's been into it too. So, you get into that culture and everything, and it's kind of fun. Here in Atlanta, we have Sweetwater Brewing, and their IPA, they say, this is the beer you've been training for. And I really like that slogan, but I think that applies most to the Dogfish Head 90-minute IPA. They have a 60-minute. That's kind of and they've got I think they've got a regular different IPA, right?
Yeah, well, we have this one too, right? The Dogfish Flesh and Blood, which is that really common blood orange citrusy kind of a deal.
But they've got their IPA. Then they've got their 60-minute, and that's talking about how long those hops are in the boil for 60 minutes there to really give it that kind of acidic hop, like the back end hop flavor, that really bitter stuff. And then they've got the 90 minute. So the 90 minute, I feel like this is the beer you've been training for. And if you can pick up the 90 minute and take a swig and go, all right, that's a good beer. Your training wheels are off and you are enjoying a good beer.
Yeah, if you can pick this one up and just drink it, you're good. But for a stretch goal, the 120.
They do have a 120.
Yeah.
And that's,
Great.
I mean.
Careful with that one, though. It's so malty. It's like 650 calories per beer.
Well, there is that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's bitter. You're licking a penny at that point. But
and it's like 8-point-something% alcohol, too. So you kind of be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got a few liquors here, just kind of emptying out the bar. So Sherwin brought this one over, this Slow and Low Rock and Rye.
Rusty drank all my damn
last
booze.
week. I brought it up, and I go, Sherwin, truth time. So I said, okay, truth time. And he's like, oh, crap, what?
Show him how much you
Oh,
drink.
yeah, right there. Right there is this much. So when he left.
One drink left.
When he left on Thursday, there was about this much left. And I'm pointing about 3/4 of the way up the bottle. And now there's maybe two drinks left in it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're having a good night, it might be a 1.5 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been getting into that, man. So who makes this? Hosh, I can't read that. Hochstadler's.
You know me, it's all about the way the bottle looks when I buy it, or what the label says.
Yeah, that's
what was it? What's so different about
really
this?
tasty.
It's like flavored, rock and rye.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of it's like
they
tastes.
added something to. Oh yeah,
there's like a peach or a
raw
or
honey, navel
okay.
orange, rock candy, and bitters.
Well, look at that.
Yeah,
and it's still 84 proof. It ain't like it's 60
that's
proof.
another rule of mine. It's got to be over 80 proof.
Yeah,
80 proof is cheating. And
watered down till it tastes
I just saw Slow and Low, and I was like, well, we like cooking barbecue. That's what Slow and Low is.
I'm digging it.
Rock and Rye. I was like, oh yeah, your marketing technique just worked, and you have a good product, so I'll buy it again.
Yep.
And it wasn't that expensive either. I think that was a $27 bottle.
Really?
Yep.
Really? So I owe you about probably $20.
Yeah, probably.
It's episode 114. Let's talk about car number 14. It's been in the news quite a bit in the last several years with Clint Boyer and, of course, Tony Stewart. Tony, 262 races. Here's the crazy thing. I didn't realize that he raced the most races in the number 14 at 262. I would have thought there would have been somebody with these low numbers like we had last week with 13. I'd have thought somebody would have won in 13. I thought somebody would have had 400, 500 races in the number 14 with the low numbers. But Tony was he had the most races in it, even though he didn't race that number his whole career.
Wow.
So 262 races with 16 wins. Second on the number of races list, Cuckoo Marlin. We've talked about him a few times.
Cuckoo has showed up a time or two.
Yes, sir. Jim Paschal, 7 wins in 76 races.
Dude, he wins one of every 11 races.
How many times have we talked about him on the show? I mean,
well, I was going to say,
he comes up like every third number.
We're going to get to another one where it's going to be like, has this guy driven every car number in the sport?
Herschel McGriff. 21 wins or 21 races, 4 wins.
That's a combo name right there, right?
Herschel,
especially down in Atlanta.
Down in Atlanta with
you
Fred
got Herschel
McGriff.
Walker and Fred McGriff.
And here's the name. Here's the name you were talking about, Bobby Allison. How many cars has he won?
Yeah, he's won in at least 4 different. And honestly, that's not even the one I was talking about.
Okay,
yeah, that's coming up.
Bonnie Flock.
Yeah, the flocks, they show up everywhere.
The flocks are all over the place. I don't think we've talked about Fonny yet. 103 races, 14 wins. Unbelievable.
He wins at better than a 1 in 10 clip.
Yes, he does. And we haven't talked about Fonty yet. And there's something about his first name that threw me off on the last name. I was focusing on the first name, and I didn't really notice the last name until I started researching, and it's like
there's 3 of them.
He's brother of Tim and Bob Flock. Like Tim Flock, Bob Flock. Like, we've talked about them at length on the podcast. So, part of the Flock clan. And not only that, here's the other cool part that I didn't know. Their sister was the second female Cup driver, Ethel Mobley.
That's awesome.
How about that name too, Ethel? Ethel. You think
that's a good Southern name.
It is a good Southern name, and the way I think of an Ethel is like a strong but older grandmother type of person. Imagine today and here comes Ethel in the number 22 car, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh crap, watch out for Ethel. That's really cool to me. Then that it makes it more badass.
Yeah, well, you growing up in a family with a long history of Southern ancestry and whatnot, just like me on my mom's side, there are some interesting names that show up in the Southern female lore of names, and male for that matter. Like my parents, or grandparents rather, were Alice and Grable Braswell. Grable. Wow. And there was an Aunt Murtis.
Aunt Murtis, wow. Wow, we had, let's see, on my dad's side was Wiley.
That's
Wiley.
Awesome.
Wiley.
Isn't that Casey Kane's dad's name?
Is it?
No, Willis. I think his name's Willis.
Willis. Wiley and Linda on that side, and then Emma and John. Emma and John. I mean, that's an old school,
right there.
You don't mess with them. But Fonny Flock, so he was a moonshiner back in the day, of course.
Of course.
His first win was at Lakewood Speedway here in Atlanta in the early 40s, like 1940, 1941.
That's awesome.
And then he took 4.5 years off because something pretty big happened in 1942.
Gee, I wonder what that was.
Yeah, he was a U.S. Army Air Corps for 4 years in World War II. It's so cool to me to hear about these guys. I mean, greatest generation, they call it. And I keep seeing the evidence for that. The people who, especially, I shouldn't say especially, I mean, of course, the folks that were lost and all that, how can I pay my respects even more? But the people who you hear about who leave and then come back and what they're doing, they just pick up where they left off. Mm-hmm. And that's the way kind of the country made that work for them, too. So after 4.5 years away, he won his first race back, and I'm getting goosebumps because I know which racetrack it is, North Wilkesboro. What a legendary place. I don't know what to say more than what we've said about North Wilkesboro.
Well, North Wilkesboro is a pretty awesome racetrack, was a very big part of the sport, and Wilkesboro and Wilkes County was a big part of the North Carolina moonshining industry as well. Junior Johnson, anybody?
So that was in 1947, May of 1947. He won that one. He got a championship in 1949. Well, hats off to him. He passed away in 1972, and he was inducted into the Georgia Auto Racing Hall of Fame in 2004. So hats off and drinks up to Mr. Fonty Flock.
Which I believe is curated by none other than Mr. Gordon Perkle Sr.
himself.
In Dawsonville, Georgia.
Yes, of PTM, I would say of PTM lore, but I think he's known for a lot more than having been on our
PTM alumni nonetheless.
I like that, PTM alum. Maybe that's the stickers we give out. PTM alum, like that's kind of like
pretty cool.
A badge of honor right there, right?
I think so.
Well, dude,
it certainly will be in like 2 or 3 more years.
yeah. It's time to tear it down, but before we tear it down from last week, I believe we're in the window in which we could give Mr. Matt Weaver a call. What do you think?
Yeah, let's give it a go. Maybe we'll
give it a try, and
so y'all are going to hear us call, and we're going to see if this works. And this is new for us to do it live while we.
Yep, it is
like recording. This is going to be in the iTunes file.
Oh yeah, because I'm not editing this.
No,
that's too much
editing.
Work.
We don't edit. I've been staring at the notes too long. I need to flip on over to the. Oh, there's Carlton.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
What's up,
so
brother?
we're going to give Mr. Weaver a call, and you're going to hear it happen live. This is kind of crazy. I've never done this
And Mick
before.
Rose says that Herschel McGriff is actually from Oregon. He's a big Oregon Ducks fan.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is Weaver.
Weaver, what's
there he
up,
is.
dude? Did we lose him?
No.
Oh, no, he's there. Awesome. We're actually live on the show, man. How you doing?
Oh, it's good. I'm actually sitting here with an unofficial meeting of the Media Center Alliance. Got some NASCAR folks here at La Unica Restaurant in Huntersville, North Carolina. Kind of a meeting of the mind, as it were, between some of NASCAR's best and brightest.
Oh, man. Can you drop names on us, or is that a no-no?
Oh, I tweeted about it earlier. We've got Kelly Crandall here, Chris Owens. We got Mike Ness.
That's fantastic to have that kind of crew. Let's see here. So, we did our normal stuff. We started with our car number stuff, but as always, I know Weaver brings something crazy to the table. So we got to ask you, Weaver, what you're drinking tonight.
Oh, I'm drinking right now. I'm drinking a Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Good man.
Straight out of Atlanta.
Good
That's
man.
That's the way to be.
I got a Coca-Cola with my burrito Mexicana.
Perfect. That makes
Sounds
perfect
delicious. Well, Weaver, we're fixing to start with our Tear It Down segment. Just rolling right into it. I know usually, we sit here and chit-chat for a little bit, but since we're already live, it's like, well, I'm being totally unprofessional here on a podcast to do the talk about that. But whoa, there's our Tearing It Down music. Weaver, let's start with of course, starting with the Magic Mile and what all went down. What were you? Was there anything surprising to you, or was it pretty much just, hey, Toyota went out there, they did their thing, Martin Truex Jr. Was still strong, etc. What was there anything surprising to you?
Well, when I wrote my What We Learned column on Monday for Autoweek.com, I actually wrote that it was a validation for everything we've held true about this season. I felt like Martin Truex Jr. and the 78 team has been 1A, and that makes the 18 team 1B. And this race kind of affirmed that notion that the path to Homestead runs through those two. And at this point, it's just a matter of who's going to join them. And I think this race pretty much confirmed that's what this playoff run is going to look like.
Do we have a chance of a non-Toyota doing anything?
Yeah, I really do, because, look, I made the mistake last year of saying that we're going to have nothing but Joe Gibbs and Furniture Row cars at Homestead, and it didn't quite play out that way. And by the time it was all said and done, Jimmy Johnson became 7 times. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that, this is going to be an all-Toyota party. I still think the championship runs through them, obviously. But that would be discounting what the 42 team has done this year. Kyle Larson ain't going to go away, and he's not going to be a regular season wonder and not do anything in the playoffs. I still feel like the 48 team hasn't shown their cards yet. I was a little disappointed by how their postseason or their playoff season has really run, but I still feel like there are some players here who are going to find something, kind of like Tony Stewart did, 5-6 years ago, that they're going to hit on something and kind of run with it all the way to Homestead. But make no mistake, this deal still runs through the 18 and 78.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt.
And Sherwin, we were talking about last week about the first round of the playoffs, and my opinion being that it's kind of the survival round, and that's kind of playing out with the folks who are down at the bottom right now. Kurt Busch, who I think is probably the big surprise for, or the big surprise in. There's always that one, whether it's maybe a junior sometime or Kurt Busch or whoever it is. Newman, Casey, Austin Dillon. I don't think there's a whole lot of surprises right there in terms of the survivorship of this part. And so I think to Weaver's point, you don't have to show your cards yet, right?
Yeah, and then furthermore, I feel like even though the 41 was involved in a crash on Sunday, and that's kind of why he's in this perilous position, I really didn't feel like they have shown anything all year to make me believe that they could survive to the round of 12 anyway. And I think the crash just kind of cemented that that's what kind of team they were going to be. And that's, no disrespect at all. I feel like right now, Stewart-Haas Racing in the first year of their Ford deal really hasn't put those pieces together yet. And, I think Kevin Harvick has made an entire career of going above and beyond what his equipment gives him. I mean, remember when he was at RCR and he was still winning 2 to 3 races a year while his teammates ranging from Ryan Newman to the Dillons to Jeff Burton, all of those contemporaries were just struggling to even get one win, if any. And there was Kevin Harvick getting 2-3 wins a season. This is what Kevin Harvick does. And it was no surprise to me that when you put him basically in a Hendrick Motorsports contemporary car, he goes out and wins the championship and probably should have won a second one a year later. And so overall, I guess what I'm saying is Stewart-Haas really is not a contender this year, but Kevin Harvick is just so good, and Rodney Childers is so good. They're just getting more out of that car, that equipment, than what they probably deserve.
I think that's a fair assessment based on what we're seeing. I would be nervous for next year, but we're not talking about next year yet. I think they're probably going to close the gaps or whatever gaps that we perceive exist today That's been talked ad nauseum by none other than a Ford driver, Brad Keselowski. But I think as far as what you were both saying about what we're looking at from an elimination perspective, you have two guys that essentially have to win and two guys that are sitting there battling out in the cut line. And I don't think there's any surprise to the bottom four. I would have thought maybe Kurt would survive the first round based on the momentum of the top tens that he had coming in. But that's what happens when you crash. You give up a big portion of points. And especially now with the ability to score points in the first and second segment, like crashing out is an even bigger deal.
That's a good point. Yeah, very good point there. That it's not just the win that's going to transfer, not just the place, but you can also score those extra points too.
Yep.
So and especially if you're crashing out early or something. I mean, that's a huge dagger.
Yeah, and I would add on, too, that I think a team like the 17 team, Ricky Stenhouse, I think a lot of people had them as one of the first ones to go, and certainly they're right there on the bubble line as well. Mm-hmm. But they had 2 wins, so they had several stage points that they could lean on, and I think that's probably what's going to ultimately see them through. And getting past the round of 12 will be a different story. But I think with the 41 team, they just didn't have a lot of stage points to rely on. They had no margin of error. They were involved in one crash at New Hampshire, and it pretty much puts them against the 8-ball, as it were.
Yep. So, Sherwin, what else to talk about for the Magic Mile?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of people left that race, whether they went to it or whether they watched it on TV, with the same sort of negative opinion that they had of Chicagoland, and I don't know if that was necessarily fair. But I think you're going to get that when the person who ended up winning is the one that wins. And that's no slight to any of our friends that are Kyle Busch fans, but it just seems to be there's that roar of negative emotion that happens.
So that's a great segue into one of our Ask PTM questions. Andrew Kansian at KHANTZIAN, he asks this week, how much momentum does NASCAR have right now after 2 now this is opinion, but after 2 lackluster playoff races and a predictable outcome with Truex, Kyle Busch, and Larson typically dominating? Weaver, what do you think?
I don't know what fans want sometimes. I mean, the fastest cars win races. That's why they're the fastest cars, and that's kind of the point of a race. And I would tell fans, you don't have it as bad as Formula One fans. Those races are over as soon as qualifying is done and they get past the first corner. Now, look, that being said, New Hampshire was lacking for drama. It really was. I think the schedule right now on the Cup Series side is a little lacking. These cars are just not made for these kind of tracks. We've become, IndyCar circa 1990, and I think there's probably cause for frustration there. But sometimes you just have to tip your cap off to a really good team, like the 78 team is, and like the 18 is becoming. But I still feel like you've got every single weekend a good 5 or 6 deep roster that can challenge for wins. And these races are not necessarily lacking for drama. They might be lacking for quality racing. But I go back to Chicagoland, and I thought that race was interesting from the standpoint that there were a lot of teams that made mistakes on pit road, teams that made mistakes on the track that put them in a track position bind, and that's where the kind of drama is. I think fans need to watch races through a different lens, and that, okay, the 78 and the 18 are probably going to have the best speed. Fortunately for fans, race points and stage points, playoff points are not being handed out after qualifying. There are things that has to happen during the race. Incidents happen. The 78 problem, it's funny to me. I'll say this. I thought that the 18 team was by far and away the car to beat at Chicagoland. They made the mistakes on pit road. The 78 wins. It was reversed at New Hampshire. I thought the 78 team was the team to beat, and they were caught up in that deal halfway through, lost track position, then the 18 team wins. That's how you have to watch these races. It's not just necessarily about speed. It's a total team effort. And I still think there's room for another team that we're not talking about right now, whether it's the 42 or the 48, or whether, silently but surely the 2 team, Brad Keselowski's been right there, and no one's talking about him either. But there's going to be someone else to kind of emerge. And we're going to get to the second half of this playoff at races like Martinsville and Phoenix and then at Homestead, which are conducive to really good racing, where we're going to have some action and drama. So, look, there are some things that I have criticisms for when it comes to the NASCAR racing product, but I still think that right now there are a lot of fascinating storylines to follow in this playoff. And, yeah, New Hampshire was kind of a dud. I thought Chicagoland was kind of interesting. And, we're not even halfway through this thing yet, and I'm still kind of intrigued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got among the ones that you've talked about, I mean, we've still got things like what we'll call our cookie cutters. That in a lot of ways there's more than just Toyotas that can win there. We've got a lot of people playing and going back to talking about people not showing their hand yet. That's where we're talking about people like Jimmy Johnson or Chase Elliott. Shoot, we haven't heard from him in a while, but I mean he's comfortably still in the next round of playoffs. Sherman.
Yeah, well, he ran second Chicagoland. Had a pretty good day. Pretty quiet because of all the previous talk we just talked about with Truex and Kyle Busch and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think Brad's probably laying in the weeds a little bit. I think Jimmy's probably laying in the weeds. I don't think anybody expects that 48 car not to find something. Mm-hmm. Like if he doesn't crash out of races, then he's going to make next rounds. That's just kind of what they do.
Yeah, right. So, moving on into our next question from the PETM posse here, Mark Wiley at MW_RaceFan1877. I love this question, especially for Weaver here. Would any of you ever consider writing a book? And if so, what would be your chosen topic? Weaver, you ever thought about a book deal here?
Well, I would say we had a podcast appearance a couple of months ago where I told some road stories that you guys seemed genuinely fascinated by, and
absolutely,
definitely I think that I've lived a life on that front that's probably worthy of telling some stories. I don't know right now. I mean, I'm 29. I'll turn 30 in February. I don't know if I've got a life worth writing a book about yet, or have even had the life experiences to warrant writing a book. But if the time comes, 10, 15 years from now, where I've seen some things and done some things that there's demand for, and people talk about it, that's certainly something that I wouldn't shoot down. But I think fundamentally I like the idea, just because I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, and this is what storytellers do, is tell stories. So it's never say never kind of a situation for me.
It's not that I forgot about those stories. It said it wasn't in the front of my mind, but Sherwin, a Matt Weaver tell-all
anthology.
Holy crap! I mean, that would be a page turner right there, just based on what he said. The stories that he's told on this podcast. I love it.
I'd read it because that's an even more long form version of what we're doing here on a microphone. Yeah. So there's going to be more fat and
right.
more butter on those stories.
Right. So Matt, who would be the Audible reader for the audio book on the Matt Weaver tell-all expose?
Hopefully, Sir Patrick Stewart is still alive. I'm kind of a fan of my fellow bald contemporaries. And David, who doesn't want Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, telling their life story?
Heck yeah,
yeah. Sherwin, I would absolutely never write a book. I'm terrible. It's not that I'm not terrible at writing. I'm just I'm not a writer. It's not something that I think I would enjoy or get anything out of. However, if I did have to write a book, I think we've got enough stories at racetracks, like just short stories that we could just put in chapters and be like, all right, this was Atlanta 2009. Oh, this was Talladega 2013 or whatever it was. We've got enough of those to fill a book worth, and I think I'd want Ward Burton to read that.
It wouldn't be like a nose-to-tail story.
Right.
It would definitely have to be one of those chopped up, sort of abrupt.
Yeah.
Even skip around
Aesop's
years
Tales,
and dates. Yeah, something like that. I think we would do it. I think my problem with like the whole idea of writing a book is I don't really trap enough information like inherently. Like I don't know that I'm a good storyteller. I think the reason why we ended up doing this show the way we do it is you're kind of the narrator and I'm like the color guy or whatever you want to say. I mean, It's not that you don't provide color. It's just that you sort of drive the ship and you like, hey, ADD over there, can you start talking now? And I'm like, oh, I have like this crazy weird vault of knowledge I can unlock and spill out.
Right.
Or whatever, however you want to call it. But I think our friends over across the water, the MOATF guys, would definitely be digging on some Patrick Stewart doing your audio book there, Weaver.
Awesome. And Weaver, what do you do in that situation? You don't remember all the details or whatever. Is it just kind of a poetic license there with it, or what's your strategy for that? I'm just curious, as a person who doesn't write, how you feel in the details.
Well, this is probably I don't know what this says about my personality, but I actually keep a journal of things that happen, because I feel like there's come a certain point where I recognize that I've lived kind of a cool life, and I expect to continue living a cool life in this sport, or even outside of the sport, no matter what it is that I do. But I've met some really cool people. I've been able to experience some things that people would spend a lot of money to be able to do, and I just do it because it's my job. And I think that lends itself to something that's worth remembering, whether I ever share it or not. And maybe the day will come where I share my journal and just publish it that way, or I just go back and lean on those to kind of remember. But it's funny. I'm going to show a little bit of my geek side here. There is a video game series that I absolutely love that has shaped a lot of who I am from a creative standpoint, and it's the Final Fantasy video game series.
Okay.
And in one of these games, Final Fantasy VIII, the characters use this kind of magic, and they use it as a weapon to be able to further the storyline. But it turns out later in the game that they can't remember that all these characters knew each other as children. They're in the same orphanage together. And the reason they can't remember is this magic that they use makes them forget everything. And eventually, if they keep using this magic, they're going to forget. And I'm like, I would hate to forget all these people that I knew, and hate to forget all these things that I've done. So I should probably keep a journal of this. So I've actually kept a journal since I was a teenager, just because I've never wanted to forget all these cool things that I've done.
I regret that we don't have my wife in here today, because even on Weaver, I don't know if you remember, but you and her even talked back and forth on Twitter about the latest Final Fantasy and stuff. She is huge into that stuff. I'm less of the gamer in the family. We're kind of like the weird opposite roles, where I have a job that deals with computers, but then all my hobbies are like
sports and drinking.
And then her job is kind of sports and drinking, which is kind of funny. And then all her hobbies are nerd stuff, which is fun. And we play off that a lot. So that's awesome. That's funny. And I did take note that Weaver said he's gone around and met a lot of cool people. And I thought, yeah, he's met a lot of cool people and the PTM podcast guys.
I was including you guys in it. Sure, absolutely.
Oh, man. Self-deprecating humor is where I'm at.
Always.
Just about everything.
Always.
Next question from Stock Car Live IT at Stock Car Live ITA asks, how has... talk to us about that journey to Sardinia at the Italian WRC event, and if you're still going on with your Italian lessons there.
I've been unable to start, and this is really frustrating to me, because you guys know how busy living in the industry of racing can be, because you're constantly on the go, you're traveling every week. But the biggest challenge for me is I need to be able to sit down at some point and practice, and then once I feel like I've got the basics down, then I've got to find someone to be able to talk back and forth with and be able to have the conversation that way. I definitely want to go back. I fell in love with Sardinia. I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, you went to Roma. That must be so cool. You saw the Colosseum and you were near the Vatican. And to me, that's not what stuck out to me about that trip. I absolutely fell in love with the islands, Sardinia. It was a magical place. To me, what really stood out, first of all, it was the coolest place I've ever watched a race. Just the backdrop of the mountains and the valleys. So that was cool. I shared a lot of pictures on Facebook and Twitter if anybody wants to go back and relive those. But the coolest thing, non-racing, that stood out to me about Sardinia is we live here in the United States. We drive down the interstate, or we go down freeways or highways, and everything is so commercialized. Here's billboards. Here's the McDonald's arches. Here's the sign for Starbucks. Here's Burger King. Here's Walmart, and you're inundated with commercialization everywhere you go and everything that you do. And to me, when I went back to Sardinia, it was like I was transported back in time. I mean, here I am driving a car, but you drive these beautiful roads that go up these mountains and valleys and hills, and you go to these little rustic towns. Everything is very traditional. Everything is very mom and pop family oriented. All these coffee shops and restaurants that I went to were all privately owned, family owned, bed and breakfasts. And I just felt like I was so far removed from the worst aspects of American culture. And look, make no mistake, I love being an American. And that's something that's very important to say right now, given some of the controversy going on. I love the country where I'm from. I love being an Alabamian. But sometimes I feel like we are just too commercial of a culture. And I've always gone fishing and camping when I was a kid, and I felt the same thing then, going up in the mountains and being up in nature. I love nature. And here's this entire island that's roughly the size of Vermont, that's off the coast of mainland Italy, where everything is untouched. And it's just very, very romanticized to me, and I would love to go back.
That's really cool. I think that needs to be in your book, by the way, is the the Italian experience there and what to see and what to do. I hope you took a lot of...
Well, I hope there are several experiences. I mean, I would love for there to be a whole chapter someday where I talk about going back 6 or 7 times. That is just a wonderful culture, good people, very, very entertaining sense of humor there, really. I love the Italian sense of humor, and I hope I go back several times and write about it.
So we're going to gas it up and talk about this upcoming race. But before we do that, Weaver, you and I actually have an anniversary that Facebook reminded me of today, that we've been friends on Facebook for a year. So, hey, go us. We need to get it like a cake or something.
Hey, boom confetti.
Boom confetti. I love it. I love it. So let's gas it up. And we're going, oh, there it is. We're going from the Magic Mile to the Monster Mile. So, Weaver, tell us what you're looking forward to. What you think. Is there going to be a different thing here? Are we looking at Toyota just dominating again? What's going on?
Well, I'm looking forward to the day that we can stop going to 1-mile tracks and calling them short tracks. That'd be a great start. I shared the story the other day of this unnamed former NASCAR executive who told me that I need to stop complaining about the lack of short tracks because we have New Hampshire and Dover and Phoenix and there's your short tracks. I'm like, dude, I just came back from Hickory Motor Speedway. That's a short track.
Yeah, yeah.
But to answer your question, this is the weekend where I'm looking towards that 48 team. I mean, Dover is their house. You go to Dover, Delaware, and you know that race runs through the 48. And, the 24 team won there a couple of years ago, too, with Jeff Gordon. And so if Hendrick Motorsports and then that duo of Jimmy Johnson and Chase Elliott are going to make a run towards this championship, I think Dover is where you're going to see the signs of it, because both of those teams, maybe not the drivers, but both of those teams have been really good there. Jimmy Johnson's the king of Dover, and that 24 team led by Alan Gustafson has always brought good cars to that racetrack. So if they're going to have any say-so about stopping the 18 and 78, it starts at Dover. Same thing with Kyle Larson, too. Referring 1-mile tracks, Kyle Larson says he's not a good short tracker, and he's referencing 1-mile tracks, too. Well, you're going to have to do that if you're going to win this championship, because you've got Phoenix coming up, too. So, someone's going to have to show something here that's not a Toyota, that's not an 18, that's not a 78.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we have a question we'll get to in just a second from a listener regarding the 48. But I mean, I think if anybody is going to show up and say, hey, we actually, we're going to make some noise in this chase, we're going to contend with the 18 and the 78. seems like Dover's probably a good place for that to start. I mean, Brad's won there before. We know the 48 can win there. I don't know.
Sherwin, I think something you're real good at here, too, is talking about what to look at different between these tracks. I'd like to hear you and Weaver talk about it. We were at the Magic Mile. We're going to the Monster Mile, these 1 miles. And for anybody who's thinking, well, we just had this mile track and Toyota won it and it was Kyle Busch show, blah, blah, blah. What should we expect different and why should we expect differently at Dover?
Well, I'll say here's the list of reasons why you should expect someone other than the 78 and the 18 team to be the one to beat. And therefore, that's all the reasons I have why you should expect the 78 and 18 team to be the ones to beat.
That was perfect. That was perfect. The 2-second pause. You've got your radio cues down. Thank you for that.
It was the perfect amount of time because I was panicking on we thought
we lost him.
And he was fixing to make a great point. And he still made the great point.
I don't think there's anything I certainly can't find fault with where you stand there, Weaver, especially given, Truex's bread and butter track whenever he actually would run well was early in his career was Dover. Whether it's proximity and his dad having a race there and whatever you want to call it.
And P.S. real quick, Jimmy Johnson won the last race at Dover. Martin Truex Jr. won the race before that.
Right.
At Dover. So it's not just early. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
no,
now.
He's still good.
Yeah.
He's still good there. And so I would be very nervous if I was a fan of anybody other than Truex or Jimmy Johnson, I guess. I think what I'm looking for is a surprise. I want to see somebody again. I want to see Larson find some magic. I want to see of course I want to see Chase win. No apologies about proximity to where he's from and the family and everything here with us being from Atlanta. But I want to see a surprise. I mean, Brad, like we've said a couple times already on this show, he's kind of been laying in the weeds, been having a pretty good chase so far, only 2 races in.
Yeah.
But it's
playoff,
definitely
not chase, playoff.
Playoffs. Oh, that's right. You're right. I did it.
We have no. I do it. And
I did the thing.
I did it last week. You did it. Like
that's
we
funny.
all. Yeah.
So I want to see somebody different. I do want to see a shakeup. I'm not really sure who I want to say is ready to be out. I mean, I think it's already obvious to me. There's 2 cars that are out that have no chance, and then there's 4 cars that are going to duke it out over 2 spots. It'll be interesting to see if could really one of those cars actually win. It doesn't seem like there's a Hail Mary. There's no superlative for Hail Mary on these transfers in the playoffs for NASCAR. Yeah. Not yet. Maybe we just haven't done it enough yet.
Right. So, Weaver, we talked last week about how interesting and kind of cool it is that we're not just talking about the cars up front, but we're talking about those cars that are either bubble or at the very bottom and stuff. What's your thoughts on the bubble chase here? I use the word chase. The bubble playoff. Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse, Ryan Newman, and does Kurt Busch have a chance? And Casey Kane, I think everybody knows, is kind of the Hail Mary that Sherwin has been talking about. But what chances are there among those, and what should we look forward to?
Well, if I'm a Kurt Busch fan, the one thing I kind of hang my hat on is that a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I believe, Kevin Harvick found himself in a must-win scenario, having crashed out of the first 2 races of the playoffs and was in kind of a very similar desperate straits as the defending champion, no less. And he went right into Dover and kicked their tails, and that was a Stewart-Haas racing team. Granted, they were Chevrolet affiliated, and it was a different number 4 team. They'd won a bunch of races that year, not just one. But look, Kurt Busch is a heck of a wheelman, and he is a previous champion in our sport, and I can promise you that team is going to do everything they can to kind of find every loophole or exploit anything in the rule book they can, because they have nothing to lose. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have a really good result and it finds out that they failed LIS because they're just trying. And they were just trying to get every single little bit they could because it was a do-or-die scenario. So I think that team is going to give it everything they've got. It would not surprise me if Kurt Busch wins. It would be a great Game 7, bottom of the ninth type moment. But I don't think it's going to happen, obviously. I think that the 17 team, their saving grace is going to be those There's bonus points they had for winning 2 races earlier this year. I think that Ricky's going to have a really good weekend. He's going to sneak his way into the next round.
Great.
Shut us right up.
Yeah, right. Well, perfect summary right there. We have a question from the PTM posse, Mr. Bodacious at Bodacious Beer. This is a tough one, but he says, "Give me some fantasy advice. Do I go with the hot hand Toyotas or the old reliable Jimmy Johnson at Dover this week?"
Man, I don't even know how fantasy racing works. That's something I've never even touched. I know there's like this whole gimmick about how you have X number of drivers you can pick from like Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. To me, I'm always going to say, the Toyota teams are really good. If you need a sleeper Toyota, for whatever reason, if you have to fill out your roster, what you need to look at is the 20 team. Traditionally, they were not good. Well, Matt Kenseth, as a driver, was not necessarily good at Dover, but he's turned it around with that 20 team. 2 tracks, Dover and New Hampshire, he used to not be good at. He was good on Sunday. I think the 20 team is going to surprise some people, might even get that first win of the year, but that's a Toyota too. That's probably not going to help ease anyone's anti-Toyota concerns.
Yeah, well, I'm going to take this opportunity because of what you mentioned in Matt Kenseth to do sort of a throwback recall. That Matt Kenseth's first start was at Dover in the number 94 car owned and operated and driven by Bill Elliott. He was hurt. And Matt Kenseth got a top 10 in his very first Cup start at Dover. So I think that's a hell of a dark horse pick.
Mm-hmm. So let's see where we.
Are we ready to make picks? Or we want to segue to picks?
I think that is the segue to picks right there. Let's let our guest have first dibs here, Mr. Weaver. What's your pick for Dover?
Man, if you guys are giving me first pick, then I've got to go with the 48. I know they've been silent so far in this deal, but I really do think they're going to kind of reassert their dominance in this playoff run. Dover's their best track, so Jimmy Johnson gets it done this weekend.
I love that. I feel like, so on the fantasy side, to answer Bodacious' question, I feel like I would back pocket Jimmy for. I don't know if you have to choose Jimmy now or later. I'm saving him for later.
If you have limited starts, or is this a money buy league?
Yeah, I'm saving.
If it's a money buy league, you don't have to save him.
Right. Just Jimmy Johnson.
If it's a Yahoo style where you only get 9 starts a year or whatever.
Yeah.
You may want to hold on to him.
Might hold on to him till maybe Charlotte or something, or in one of those races where not necessarily that he has to win, but that he has to place really well to make it to the next round. But he's safe enough right now, as long as he's not finishing dead last or something. DFL, as we call it. So
DFL.
I've already said his name in the guy that won 2 races ago, Martin Truex Jr. I haven't, and here's the thing, I haven't really picked him much this season, and I've missed out on 5 possible wins, but as strong as he is, as strong as Toyota, as strong as he is at Dover, as strong as Toyota is right now, and as carefree as he has to run right now, I don't see any reason for him to not either go for it or blaze of glory. So I really like Martin Truex Jr. here at Dover.
Okay, well, I'll make it short and sweet. I think this is where Brad Keselowski stops laying in the weeds.
Okay, you've mentioned his name a couple times in terms of the weeds of the playoffs.
I think he's going to jump out and bite somebody,
sniffing and hunting, weekend. And now's the time to strike, huh? I like it. So that's the picks. Weaver, tell the folks what you're up to, and by the way, what's the Cubs magic number?
Well, the magic number is 1. Right now they're laying a big egg, so I don't think the Brewers are going to lose this one either. So clinch day is probably going to have to be postponed until tomorrow. But like I said, I'm out for dinner with the Media Center Alliance, so I haven't paid much attention to the game tonight. But as far as what I've been doing, man, I feel like I'm busier than ever just because now at Autoweek I'm more than just a NASCAR guy. I've done some IndyCar this year, had that trip to Italy, and I didn't feel bad because we got our wires crossed on the start time tonight, and I hate that we couldn't have a full episode to talk about it, so I'll make it up to you guys soon. But things have just been busy. It's been overwhelming. It's been fun, but very much overwhelming.
That's the best way to be. Fun and overwhelming.
That's a good spot to be in right now, where you're at, I think.
I'm digging it, and I loving what's coming out of Matt Weaver right now too. By the way, everything he's posting and all the stuff he's talked about, I've read. It's one of those. I think there was a SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob's eyeballs, like they shot out of his face and hit the screen in front of him and started moving around on the screen, like showing how intently he is reading something. and that's I see a Matt Weaver story, and boom, my eyes shoot out. They hit the screen and they move around the screen. It's kind of funny. So bringing SpongeBob into the PETM podcast.
That's going to happen.
So with that, Sherwin, let's go to Strange with Stang. Ashley J. Stang asks a question.
Yeah, I think we've hung on to Weaver for quite a while. We might as well get to this.
Yeah, let's do it. So what would you rather see happen? Kyle Busch surpassing Richard Petty's 200 wins, or to see Clint Bowyer win a race? And then what do you think is more likely? I hope that answer is pretty obvious. But Weaver, what's your thoughts?
Oh, this is a tough one. I mean, I think both are going to happen, obviously. I think the Kyle Busch is getting to the 200, and I think that Clint's winning a race. And look, I'm not even going to make fun of the whole, he's not getting 200, and it's really not a real 200. Let me tell you something. The 200 wins that Kyle's going to amass is no different than Richard Petty, because Richard Petty was racing against Mickey Mouse and SpongeBob at Hickory back in 1948 or whenever it was.
I think there's a lot of people that share your sentiment on that. I think 200 wins is still an accomplishment. I guess where I stand on it is I don't think we have to say that one guy's 200 wins is better than the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
We can just say, holy crap, what an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's something that I was when I was looking at this question, I was thinking, I like to see history. I like to be the guy that I was there, or I saw that, or how cool was that, or how crazy was that, and be able to see that happen in my lifetime. So to see Kyle Busch surpass Richard Petty's 200 wins, I think I would like to see that for its historical perspective. What am I rooting for on a week-to-week basis? Clint Bowyer to cross that finish line, baby.
Yeah, that'll be the biggest party NASCAR's ever seen, whether it happens in NASCAR's eye or away from NASCAR's eye. I'm rooting for Clint and Spotter Brett.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to have their moment in a new, fresh start.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do I think is more likely if I had to compare the last 3 or 4 years? I would say Kyle's definitely getting to 200 wins.
Yeah.
He's got the drive and the speed and the equipment and everything else. But what's better for probably the sport from an entertainment perspective is Clint getting back to victory lane.
And I mean, in the first year of Ford's at SHR, I feel like he's had a lot of shown a lot of progress being in a car that is a good car now, and being with a team and being in kind of pretty much throwing all the resources at it. I feel like he's had a lot of success in terms of his finishing order. Obviously not playoff success, but I feel like there's success there, and I feel like the wins are pending. Weaver, what do you think?
As far as Clint Bowyer is concerned, I feel like obviously, that story hasn't fully written itself out yet at Stewart-Haas Racing, because this was a transition year. I think it was a transition year from Tony Stewart to Clint Bowyer, the transition from Chevrolet to Ford. But I want to make another point about Kyle Busch that I was thinking about too. Look, I know that Kyle's personality does not lend itself to fandom, does not lend itself to a lot of fanfare. But I think there's something to be said about the accomplishments that he's had, certainly in the Truck Series side, being that that's his own team. He built that into an empire, winning 5 championships as a team, winning all the races that he's won this year. And I don't think that gets enough credit, too, because he's driving the cars, but he's also the architect of that team. He's having to attract the right partners, the right crew chiefs, and I don't think that gets enough credit either. And especially in the Truck Series, he's running against more than rookies and kids and youngsters. He's running against the likes of Ron Hornaday and Matt Crafton now and Johnny Sauter. I certainly don't think he gets enough credit for being able to do that with his own equipment. And I've got no doubt in my mind that if he would have stayed in the Xfinity Series, he would have won several times there too. He won as a car owner with Kurt Busch at Richmond, and that just doesn't get talked about enough. And I think he's been a heck of a personality, a heck of a driver. He's not a nice guy, but you know what they say about nice guys in racing and where they finish, and that's something that probably needs to be brought up more the closer he gets to 200.
Well, Matt, in the pre-show, we were saying it's really cool how many PETM alum that we have, and we said if there's anybody who gets a PETM PhD, not accredited by anybody, but the PETM PhD goes to Matt Weaver, and we want to thank you as always for joining us and hanging out, and especially there with dinner with everybody and all that. Tell everybody we said hey. Tell Kelly we said hey. For anybody who hadn't been on the show, tell them, hey, you need to be on this show because those guys, well, I mean, you tell them whatever you want to about us, but tell them it's about time to be on here. Why don't you close us out? Tell us where folks can find you and what you're up to next.
Yeah, I would say that the next time we do one of these, we got to get Cassie on the air. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Okay.
But the same channel, same Matt channel, same Matt time, Matt Weaver, AW on Twitter, Matt Weaver Motorsports on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, with that, y'all, we're going to close it out. We got to thank Matt Weaver, as always, every time for joining us. Sherwin, where can we find us? And
where can we find us?
Show? Yeah, what's going on?
At PETM Podcast in all of the places. Sometimes it might be easier to search the official PETM Racing Podcast, maybe on iTunes or on YouTube, but on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, we're at PETM Podcast.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that. And as always, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm Andrew Sherwin, pregame engineer at Pregame Engineer.
And we will talk to y'all next week for sure. Thanks for joining. That's it, Matt. You still with us?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. Thanks again, as always. What a blast. Sorry about the kind of call you right in the middle of it. And, hey, we got to start going. It always feels like we have some
Sorry,
time.
you guys cut out on me for a second.
Oh, I was just honking your horn there.
Thank you very much, as always.
Yeah. And it was.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys for always being flexible.
It was cool and interesting and different to have you just calling in right there in the middle of the show. We always feel like we get to BS with you a little bit at the beginning and all that. So I don't think we could do that with a first time guest. So I appreciate the flexibility.
No, I appreciate you guys.
All right, man. Well, we'll let you run. I know dinner's probably getting cold and all that, and everybody's probably pissed at you. What in the hell are you talking about those guys again for that long? We've blocked them on Twitter for 6 months.
Yeah, it was kind of a last-minute thing because Ness came in from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and he was like, hey, what you doing tonight? And I'm like, well, I've got like a window if we can kind of sneak this in. And then I thought you guys were on the air at 8. And I got crossed up a little bit.
It's all good, man. It's all good. That was fantastic. So we'll let you run. Appreciate you hanging out, man.
All right, 10-4. Appreciate you guys.
We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
All right, see you.
Matt Weaver, ladies and gentlemen. What a cool guy, as always.
Bends over backwards. Tell you what, I mean, he was on the hook when we were trying to do that hurricane episode, and we didn't get to do it. And
yeah,
that means he blocked out some of his time to potentially be with us that he didn't get back. Or I guess he got it back, but not necessarily if he had made any other plans.
Yeah.
So we certainly appreciate him. Obviously, number one contributor to the PETM podcast in terms of a guest is
absolutely
concerned.
Yeah.
What is that, number 6 for him? I think.
At least. You know what's weird is that 6 sounds like a low number. You know how you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels like he's been on so many times and dropping so much knowledge and hanging out.
Yeah. I think we first had him on 46, and then we were on pace to have him on about every 10th episode since then.
Huh. Okay.
But
so math carry the one with the.
We've gone a little bit longer than 10
over
between the
hypotenuse.
last time we had him on.
Yeah.
But we did have him on a short cycle either once or twice too. So
Yeah.
Matt's been with 6 or 7 probably.
Yeah.
Great. And it always brings it hard. Just like, I mean, when we have Tommy on, it's the same kind of thing. You're going to get just blunt force honesty.
Yes. Speaking of Tommy, I wonder what he's up to lately.
Yeah. Well, I'll reach out to him.
Awesome. All right, y'all. It's been a blast.
What day are we doing the show next week?
We'll figure it out. I don't know.
Okay. So probably back to Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday is fine. Either one.
Yeah. We'll have fun there.
All right.
I'm pretty open in terms of schedule. So.
I'm home Monday afternoon. So.
Cool. All right, y'all. Peace out.
Peace.
Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.